The True Tale of Atlantis by Natalia Foley. Chapter 1.
The Supreme Counsel Khail walked along the long span of the great colonnade in the Palace of Justice. His step was firm as always, but today it was also nervous. This nervousness was felt in everything, in the vibrating knock of the heels of his leather boots, sewn according to a special order from the softest, most tender leather imitating lambskin, but in fact unique material, incomparable with any natural one in lightness. In truth, the counsellor didn't care about his boots. He didn't care about anything at all. He was walking toward the meeting he had waited 30,000 years for, to see the woman who was his soul, his other half, and whom he had met only yesterday. At the ceremonial opening of the magnificent Göbekli Tepe, he was introduced to Madam Architect, the beautiful Lelia. This woman was a legend in their world of high priests, the elite of the ruling triad. Counsel only heard about her, but never actually saw her in person, and now he was totally blown away by the charm and charisma of this incredible woman. Lelia was a tall, statuesque brunette with blue eyes, but neither her eyes, nor her hair, nor even her stunning figure of a beauty struck him. He recognized her immediately. He recognized her even before seeing her, by the incredibly warm glow of her aura. In the whole world, only one woman could be like that. His love, his other half, his wife forever. The one he parted with 30,000 years ago and to whom he gave his word to find her in the next life. He believed in reincarnation. How could he not? He had lived it. Life after life, death after death, and remembered them all, every joy, every wound, every whispered promise carried across millennia. This memory was both gift and curse, a crown of light, heavy with sorrow, yet radiant with purpose. To carry the weight of countless lives was no small thing, but it was his weight, his alone. He could not lay it down, for he had sworn to guard this world, not as a duty imposed, but as a vow carved into his soul, the pain of his pasts. He bore it like sacred scripture, not to be discarded but cherished. For in that pain lived wisdom, in that memory lived truth, and in that truth his reason for being, to save, to serve, to rise again, one life, one breath, one heartbeat at a time. This was his essence, his anchor, the fire that forged him. But now for the first time in eternity, his thoughts did not turn to duty, to destiny, to the world's trembling balance. Now they turned only to her. Lelia, he, the Supreme Counsel, who never doubted anything, who always acted with absolute determination, being the guardian of the word, being always aware of the surroundings and compassion, being aware of the dirty deals of the darkness behind his back and ready to fight it, ready to send forth what is right, giving his life time and time again, denying nothing to those who needed his help and protection. He, the Supreme Counsel, felt absolutely lost and confused. He was staring at the beautiful Madam Architect and could not believe his eyes. Lelia, it was her, his words, his soulmate, the one whose love he had been holding in his heart through thousands of years, the one whom he had promised to find, and now that she was standing right there in front of him now, he could not bring his eyes away and felt helpless because he had no idea how to handle this. He felt like a boy who had fallen in love for the first time in his life, and nothing else mattered to him at this moment, not the earth, not the universe, not a single living being around. It was him and her. And the worst part of it, she had not the slightest idea what he was going through. She did not even know his name. That was their first meeting. Supreme Counsel politely waited to be presented to Madam Architect, and being courteous and respectful, he invited Madam Architect to visit his residence at Atlantis Island in order to provide her royal advice on the construction of a new palace. Lelia was flattered by this invitation. In fact, Supreme Counsel was one of the most famous people on Earth, and his high opinion of her work at Göbekli Tepe was important for her. But most of all, she had heard many positive reviews about him from her grandfather. She had known about this man since childhood, and the opportunity to meet him and even be invited to provide him with an advice seemed to her the highest honor. So when the Supreme Counsel invited her to Atlantis Island for consultation, she was a little surprised. But after all, she was a very famous architect. So what was there to worry about? Yet she felt uneasy about this invite. It was something she had been not expecting. It was too soon. And also she felt that there was something else, something untold, something very personal in nature, and that this man had some deep personal desire for her, but also she had some tremor in her own heart she had never experienced before. She could not even express it. She had no words for it. Lelia was not attached to any man, even though she had been in relationships before, but no one ever caused her to have that incredible, strange feeling that he was her destined one. No one but the Supreme Counsel. She was scared of it. She was, at least she thought she was, a woman of realities. She never lived in illusion. But this feeling could be nothing more than wishful thinking, nothing more than an illusion. How could this man, this famous and powerful person, be the one for her? Impossible. But she was not one to hide behind her own fears. Whatever, she said, what is destiny? Let it be. Now Supreme Counsel Khail was standing by the teleportation gate that he had offered to the Madam Architect as a courteous vehicle for this visit. He was standing there staring into the empty gate, where in several seconds she would appear, and he could not believe it. It was like a 30,000 years long dream collapsing into truth. He stood frozen in place with anticipation, feeling the true coolness in the breeze. Very cold air was already confidently breaking through the departing summer heat. Now it was especially appropriate because his face was burning with emotion, but externally this was impossible to discern. The counsellor always controlled himself. He stood before the gate watching as, in the arrival arch, first appeared a blur of pleasant pearlescent light. This condensed essence began to rotate before his eye, and then, as if dissolving, revealed to his gaze the very one he had waited 30,000 years for. "I greet you, Madam Architect," the counsel said politely, gesturing for Lelia to walk with him. Lelia looked surprised and delighted. "Oh," she said, "what an experience." Khail smiled. "Was this your first time?" he asked. "First time with a teleportation gate?" "Oh yes," she replied. "Teleportation for now is still a privilege of the highest leadership of the Republic. And I am just a mortal architect." "Oh no," Khail objected. "You are the most gifted of all architects I've ever met, not to mention that you are undoubtedly the most beautiful." This conversation was happening while both of them were moving rapidly, walking the colonnade of the Palace of Justice. Yet Khail was able to glance at Lelia, to see her reaction. Lelia smiled again, not a sign of shyness. She was surprised, as she could not understand why it was so easy for her to accept compliments from this man. Why was it so easy for her to be with him, as if she had known him her whole life? She paused and added, "Your opinion is pleasant to me, but regarding architecture, I think you exaggerate. For example, my grandfather was undoubtedly more talented than me." Her grandfather was one of the most famous architects of Atlantis. He was exactly the one who designed this beautiful Palace of Justice. And this colonnade along the span on which she now stood, with the man with whom it was unusually easy for her. Khail, of course, already knew who was her grandfather, but all of that was unimportant. What was important now? How quickly he, Khail, will be able to tell her everything, because they had very little time left. "I thank you for accepting my invitation," Khail pronounced officially. "Now please follow me to our conference hall. I need to consult with you on an important state matter. Precisely for this reason I invited you today." He indicated the direction with his hand, but did not offer his arm, fearing to alarm her or offend with an inappropriate gesture or movement. Lelia seemed to understand his restraint, and swiftly moved forward. Within minutes they were seated on the terrace of his ruling residence, perched at the very summit of the palace, one might say, the pinnacle of the great Palace of Justice. And this terrace was no ordinary place. From here one could see all of Atlantis. The entire island lay beneath their feet, quite literally. A full 360-degree panorama unfolded in every direction, revealing the splendor of Atlantis. Exquisite parks, gardens, streets radiating outward like sunbeams from the city's heart, from the Palace of Justice itself. And all of it was interlaced with circular rings designed like Venetian canals, connecting every corner of the island as one living tapestry. It was beauty beyond words, everything drowned in green. The island drowned in green. Everything bloomed. It was autumn on the calendar, and yet, despite the season, many trees, especially those species cultivated in the gardens, remained in full flower. Lelia knew her grandfather had deliberately gathered these trees from across the world, conducting his own meticulous selection, all to achieve an unbroken cycle of blossoming across the entire island. One tree would begin to bloom as another faded, and so the flowering never ceased. It was perpetual.